Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. This is Comfortably Zone Radio, and it's time for Dodgers baseball. A tale of two cities, from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. I'm your host, Peter Trunk, and my co-host is Ron Rabinovitz. Ron, how are you tonight?
Good, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Great.
You're out of... as I understand it, you're out of Arizona and you're back in Minnesota.
I'm back in Minneapolis, right? Yeah.
All right. So the weather must have changed drastically for you.
Actually, it's been pretty nice here. It's been in the 40s, but
Oh, really?
tonight we're supposed to get a ton of snow. So,
Okay.
So here we go again.
All right, here we go again. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
spring training is right around the corner, Ronnie.
It sure is. It sure is. I can't wait.
I want to start the night off talking some Brooklyn baseball, and a fella that came to Brooklyn from the Philadelphia Phillies. That his name was Dolph Camilli, and he played first base for the Dodgers. He won the National League Most Valuable Player Award in 1941 when the Dodgers went to the World Series for the first time in 21 years. But the story behind the Dodgers was, even though they had been in the World Series against Babe Ruth and the Boston Red Sox in 1916, and then again a little later on in 1920 against the Cleveland Indians, the Dodgers in those years were the Daffyness Boys, and they were known for too many men on one base, fly balls hitting outfielders in the head, just crazy stuff. And they were the laughable losers, and they were always a second division team. For our younger listeners who don't know what a second division team is, back in those days there were no divisions. The National League was merely 8 teams, and if you were fourth or under, if you were fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth, that was considered second division, and the Dodgers were always in the second division. However, a guy came from Cincinnati, front office guy, Lee McPhail. The National League was worried about the Brooklyn franchise, and they actually handpicked Lee McPhail to come from Cincinnati to Brooklyn and take over the Dodgers. And Lee McPhail did many, many things. One of them was to turn the Dodgers, generally speaking, to turn the Dodgers from a bunch of jokers into a very, very reputable team and a contender almost every single year from that day forward, even as we speak to today's teams out on the left coast. The Dodgers are always in the thick of the race, and it all started on a regular basis because of a guy named Lee McPhail. And one of the things that Lee McPhail did, that was generally speaking, one of the specific things that he did was he talked the Philadelphia Phillies into giving up their first baseman, Dolph Camilli, and brought Camilli to the Dodgers in Brooklyn in 1938, where actually at the end of the season in 37, but full seasons with the Dodgers in 38 through 43 was Camilli playing in Brooklyn. And the Dodgers at that time, like I said, became very formidable. He was a gentle, quiet man, but strong as an ox, Camilli was. Leo DeRocha said of him, nobody knew how well Dolph could fight because, quite frankly, nobody had ever wanted to find out. So he was a very, very strong fella. He had an 8-year minor league career. Back in those days, as I'm sure you remember, Ron, when we were young. Now, neither one of us was alive in 1941, but we can relate to the old days of baseball that guys played more than a few years in the minor leagues before they came up to the majors.
They did. You're right.
And Dolph Camilli was no exception. He played 8 full years in the minor leagues. only breaking into the major leagues with the Cubs at age 26 at the end of the 1933 season. He was born in San Francisco, Camilli was. He played 12 seasons in the major leagues with the Cubs in 33, like I just mentioned. Then the Phillies from 1934 to 1937. Came to the Dodgers, played with them until 1943, and was, get this, traded to the New York Giants in July of 43, but refused to report. Talk about
sounds like Jackie Robinson.
Brooklyn Dodgers in the New York, right. Well, this was real, this was true hatred, and he refused to go. I remember a story about Freddie Fitzsimmons, who played for the Giants and the Dodgers also. And in one of the trades, while driving over the Brooklyn Bridge, fat Freddie Fitzsimmons actually stopped the car, got out of the car, and went over to the railing and thought about, do I really want to go or do I really want to stay? He couldn't make up his mind about a Giant-Dodgers trade. So anyway, Dolph Camilli turned the trade down, refused to report to the Giants, and instead went out to the Pacific Coast and managed the Oakland Oaks. He later came back to baseball. He joined the Red Sox in mid-1945 season, but that was only for a cup of coffee. When he was a Brooklyn Dodger, Camilli drove in 100 or more runs 4 of the 5 seasons. And in 1941 was his best year. He was most valuable player in 1941. He had 34 home runs, 120 runs batted in, and hit 285. So he was a real power hitter, real slugger. And the next year in 42, he finished second in the National League in home runs and runs batted in. He broke Zach Wheat's Dodger club record in home runs at the time. And like I said, when he was traded to the hated Giants, he refused to go. He just wouldn't go.
Right.
According to similarity scores, there is such thing as, I don't know if you're aware of this or if our listeners are, I'm sure some of them are, they have what's called similarity scores. And what that means is you can evaluate players against players of a different era. For instance, how do we know what kind of a ball player Dolph Camilli was? Well, Camilli's stats compare similarly to David Justice, okay, and Larry Doby. So you get the idea of right. So you get the idea of where Camilli was coming from. A David Justice, Larry Doby type of hitter. Following his major league career, Dolph managed back in the Pacific Coast League. He won a pennant with Spokane in 1948 as a manager. His son, Doug, was a catcher in the 1960s for the Dodgers.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, Doug Camilli, right.
That was Dolph's son. And his brother, Frank, Dolph's brother, that is, was a boxer who actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage after a bout with Max Baer in 1930.
Oh, my. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, Dolph lived to the ripe old age of 90, and he made the Dodgers Hall of Fame in 1984. So Dolph Camilli is in the Dodger Hall of Fame. Now, since we're talking about the old days, we're talking about 1941, et cetera. And I just wanted to play a little Vin Scully from the first game of the World Series in 1941. This is the Dodgers at Yankee Stadium in the 6th inning, 1941, Game 1 of the World Series.
Hooker hitting on a walk for Herman and Weaver. Here's the great man who's always at his best, but the going is the roughing. In other words, when they chipped it down, that's when Red Roughing is out there. Out of 6 World Series decisions, he's picked up 5 games won. Back of the plate is the veteran, Bill Dickey. The third base, Johnny Stern. A second, Joe Boss, shortstop, Scooter Rizzuto. And the third base, Red Rolfe. In the outfield is Charlie Keller in left. Big good Matthews in center. And in right field, Tommy Henry. Dixie Walker, who is 0 for 1. Who based on balls in the first inning to the 5 on the left field in the third. At Walker, this means something to be playing in this World Series game today because he came up to the Major League first of all here at the stadium. Takes a fast call strike right off the head. A few routes for right. They're playing Walker to full. Right side of the infield is deep. The left side is up. The step is short. Walker takes a fastball inside the knees. And apparently, we might figure that the reason the Yankee outfield is putting Walker to forward toward right field is that Ruffing is pitching Walker on the inside to try and make him fall. 1-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. It is 2-1 score, favor the Yankees. First man up in 6 innings. Red Carter pushing back to first base. Ruffing, Charlie Dustin back to third. Ruffing overhand, a fastball swung on, hit into right center. There's the matcher getting up and pulls down the line drive for the out. And the Yankee outfield defense was played a lot of pressure against Dixie Walker the way Ruffing was working going. Because Walker had a strong line drive, and had they been playing straight away, then the ball would have gone through. The outfielder right to Maggio, the center fielder pulled it down. Straight away, the baseball fallen. Just simply the center fielders on a line from home plate through second base, straight out there. Here's Billy Herman. 0-2, right-hand hitter. Takes the fastball low inside, down across the front of the chin. Billy Herman has always been a great money player. Some of those tremendous cup drives in September. He was a spearhead. Ruffing throws, swung on, hit the foul on the ground, back to third. Charlie Dresser retrieves it. 1-1. 1 out. Base is empty. Top of the 6th inning. The infield now, with the exception of the skin portion between third and short, is completely in shadow. The sun field here at the stadium is left field. This means that Keller for the Yankees was out there now, and Memphis the Dodgers are the sun fielders for the afternoon. In most parts, the sun field is right field. 1-1. Aaron Rodgers working deep back in the box. Takes a let-up curve that is high. Ruffing sort of shakes his head sadly. 2-1. That was close. Just Smith. 2-1. Everything fine for the moment. It's the All World Series crowd sitting back waiting for an explosion. Ruffing throws overhand a fastball that is inside. And that one was close again. It's missed by 6. 3-1. Herman, Allen to count is his way. Looks down the third base, looks Charlie Dresser to see if the hit of the take is off. Then Herman turns around and looks right back toward the Rocha, who is standing in the front of the Brooklyn dugout. The Dodger dugout is behind first base. The Yankee dugout, the one they always use is the long side third. 3-1. Ruffing comes down with an inside curve high for 4. Herman walks. That's the second base on ball. Give it up for Charlie. This means now that Ruffing has 4 on. Nine run at first base with 1 away in the top of the 6th. 2-1 favor the Yankees. And here is Pete Reeves. He's followed by Dolph Camilli. The outfield goes around toward right on Reeves. They play him to 4. Reeves is a left-hand hitter today. Up until 2 years ago, he was a switch hitter. But he hits exclusively now, left-handed. He looks small. But he's very compact. Weighs 180 pounds. The infield is up halfway. Ruffing in position, looks at first throws. Reader takes the fastball low inside. 1-1. Johnny Kern is holding first base against Herman, the runner. And then, of course, goes out in toward second base a couple of steps on the placement motion of Ruffing's right arm. Gordon is a step over toward first. Rizzuto a step in toward second. Ruffing throws. Reader takes low inside a sharp curve right off the kneecap for a ball 2. Walks halfway out the mound and says something to Ruffing. Here's Gordon coming in from second base. In this World Series, the American League custom is set up and established, in which that only 2 players, that's the catcher and 1 infielder, or 2 infielders, plus the manager, will be allowed to come up at any time to talk to the pitcher. The National League custom, the whole infield can come around if he wants to. Not in a World Series appeal. Ruffing in position delivers 2-0. On the outside, a fastball to the pitch for ball 3. And Ruffing did not want to mess with that. That was a big pitch. That's 2-0 pitch. When he messed with it, a fastball on the outside thrown by right-hander to a left-hand hitter. There was no more outside than just the width of a Gillette blue blade. That's 3-0. They come in at first. pitches 3-0. Low. He got it over, but under the knees. Ball 4. Strike 1. The tying run is pulled down to second base. Here's Camilli. Stepping in. Running in from third. The third base coach stops Camilli for the moment. Hickey goes all the way out to the mound for Roughing. Now the veteran Yankee battery gets together. Here is Braun coming in from second. Roughing is standing around out there, kicking his spikes against pitches Rivera. One man out. Billy Herman is the second. Big Reese with the first. Infield is just 1 of 2 steps. As much as he was using the play up, hoping for a double play, but his battering strength up there, and he gets the hold of it. The outfield is deep and choppy around toward right. Now Roughing. That's fine. Stretches in down position. Looks like a second throw. Strike 1 call. Brilliant fast curve. Coming in from the outside and breaking down at 2. Left-hand batter. Camilli standing right in the middle of batter's box. Easily balanced. Leans in. Early right-hander on the mound. Delivers. Camilli swings and misses with a fastball thrown down the alley. Nothing into it. And Roughing who got behind. More Herman. And have a throw strike to Reza. Isn't wasting any time for that strike going to Camilli. He's pitching right in at the first 2. First was taken. All strikes. Second, 1 and miss. Camilli is 0 for 2. Price has been up, and each time Roughing has struck him out. Now Red has him underneath. Nothing in 2 counts. Let's see. 1 gone. 2-1. Favor the Yankees. Roughing delivers. Camilli takes high outside after almost going for it. Ball 1. And we have 2 veteran right-handers today. And every time they get any hitter at a disadvantage, they immediately start working on him. Sort of pitching around, in and out, like a Cooper walking around the barrel. That was Roughing, pitching high and outside and tempting Camilli. Bob almost had to go after him. 1 and 2. Roughing taking his time. He's in a hurry. He's been through this thing many times before. Camilli waiting at the plate. His first World Series. Herman leading down off second, Reese off first. Here's the pitch. It's low inside. It's fast curve by the knees. Ball 2. There was Roughing after getting 2 strikes to Camilli. Pitching him first high and away. And then again, low and down. 2-2. Hickey took his mask off, looked around at the Yankee defense in front of him. Now, snapped his mask back on, settled down, pumped the sign, set up while McGowan. Looking right over behind him. Pitching up 1 pitch, 6-2-4. Roughing left back in second. He didn't pay any attention to the runner at first. Second occupied. There's Big Red stretching, easily coming down. Delivers. Camilli swings and misses. Strike 3. Roughing for the third straight time. Bump, foul, out. That's a couple of side strikeouts for Roughing. And so far, Roughing is having no trouble. With the National League 4-run king and run batted in leader. 3 times Dolph has been up. 3 times Roughing has struck him out. And now it is 2 on the top of the section. The Yankees are still defending every bit of their 2-1 lead. The hitter is Joe Memmick, who has the fielding play to his credit. Right-hand batter. 0 for 2. Field for left. Memmick swings it about to the third. Roth is up with it. Runs over 6 off third to the unassisted fourth and third. Coming down from second. That's all for the look of there. The top of the second. No, okay. 2 men were left. There were no Yankee errors. 2-1. They were the first 6 innings.
I thought you would like that. That was Red Barber, 1941.
Red Barber.
Hope you enjoyed it, Ron. Did you like that?
It was great. It was great. Well, he was such a terrific announcer.
2 things.
He's the one that brought Vin Scully in, didn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
in 19.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, you know what was interesting? 2 things that he said. The first thing that he said that interested me was when Pete Reiser came to bat, he said, Reiser bats left. He used to be a switch hitter. Now he just bats left. Well, the old story about Pete Reiser was he was a switch hitter, and then he did change to the left side only because of his take advantage of his great speed. when he ran into the walls so many times, he not only hurt his skull and his head, but he injured his shoulders. And whichever shoulder was bothering him, either his right shoulder or his left shoulder, he would bat the opposite way later in his career. So he was a switch hitter, but he wasn't a switch hitter. If the pitcher was righty, he would bat lefty, or if the pitcher was lefty, he would bat righty. It depended on how he felt that day.
How he felt, yeah.
I met him, by the way. Very interesting. Yeah. Did you?
I met him, by the way, Peter. He was a coach for the Dodgers. Yeah.
Yes.
I never saw him play, but I did meet him as a coach. And what a character!
Wow, that's great.
What a character!
That's great.
Yeah, he was something.
The other interesting thing, he was a hell of a ball player, Pete Reeves, boy. The other interesting thing that Red Barber said was when Bill Dickey went out to the mound and Joe Gordon came in from second base, he said in the American League, only one infielder and the catcher can go out to the mound, along with the manager. In the National League, the whole infield could come into the mound along with the manager.
But in the American League, only one? Just
only
catcher?
one infielder and the catcher could go out there. That was in 1941. That was very, very interesting to hear that.
Very interesting, yes.
Yeah, and you know that 41 Dodger team, I'm going to tell you something. You know, Billy Herman was the second baseman. He wound up in the Hall of Fame. Pee Wee Reese was the shortstop. He wound up in the Hall of Fame.
He was in the Hall of Fame,
was
right.
the left fielder. Joe Medwick was the left fielder. He wound up.
Yeah.
Joe Medwick. Ducky Medwick was the left fielder. He wound up in the Hall of Fame. The manager was Leo DeRocher. He managed so great that he wound up in the Hall of Fame. The right fielder was Dixie Walker, a great hitter, and the first baseman was Dolph Camilli. So that was a really excellent Brooklyn Dodger team.
Excellent team.
Yeah, they're a very, very good team. And
did Dixie Walker ever get into the Hall of Fame, Pete?
I don't believe he did. No, but he had great numbers. He had great numbers. He was a hell of a hitter.
Yeah.
The thing that hurts Dixie Walker was the stories that followed him about being anti-Jackie Robinson.
Right, exactly. And he was very bad.
I know, right, but I know later in his life that Dixie Walker said that Jackie Robinson was a great ball player and a great teammate.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Just like Bobby Bragan did much the same thing. He changed his tune, too, as he matured.
Yes, he did. He was a catcher, wasn't he, Bobby Bragan? Yeah.
Yes, he was. Bobby Bragan was a catcher. The starting catcher for the 41 Dodgers was Mickey Owen. And, you know.
He was a heck of a catcher, too.
Yes. But in that 41 series, when the Dodgers were about to tie up the series 2 games apiece, he dropped that third strike to Henrik, and that was the end of the Dodgers' dream.
That was it. Poor
anyway, we're going to stick with Brooklyn. We're going to stay in Brooklyn. We're going to move over to Ebbets Field. We're going to talk about 2 guys. You are, more specifically, going to talk about 2 guys. One of them is Billy Cox. One of them is Charlie Neal. I don't care who you start with, but why don't you tell us a little bit about one of these guys?
Okay, let's start
Ron
with
Rabinovitz.
Billy Cox.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. All right. Billy Cox was an amazing ball player. He signed as an amateur free agent by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1940. And Billy Cox made his major league debut with the Pirates on September 20th of 1941, playing 10 games at shortstop that season before serving in the military during World War II. After he returned to the Pirates, he was the starting shortstop in 46 and 47 before being traded to the Dodgers on December 8th, 1947, along with Preacher Rowe and Gene Mauch for Dixie Walker, Hal Gregg, and Vic Lombardi. And Cox was the third baseman of the Dodgers infield in the 1950s. So you had Gil Hodges at first, Jackie at second, Pee Wee at short, and Billy Cox at third. Pretty great infield.
Pretty great.
Yeah, it sure was. In 1953 World Series, Cox had a 2-run double in Game 2 and a 3-run homer in Game 5 against the Yankees. He batted .304 for the series, and he led the Brooklyn in runs batted in with 6. Cox was also an infield starter, principally at third base and leadoff hitter for the Baltimore Orioles for the first half of the 1955 season. But after being pulled for a pinch runner in June 11th, he was traded at the trading deadline on June 16th. Billy, would not report to his new team, the Cleveland Indians, reigning American champs, by the way, even after meeting with Indians manager Al Lopez. Billy resolved to retire and did so on June 17th. After he retired, the Orioles never settled on a starting third baseman until Brooks Robinson won the job in 1957. The Orioles used 13 third basemen in 1955. Amazing, huh?
Sounds like the Mets.
So
62.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Billy Cox. And then Charlie Neal.
Wait a minute, Ron.
Sure.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Charlie Neal, let's just a couple of comments about Billy Cox.
Okay.
Billy Cox had a habit. Excuse me. When the ball was hit to him, he would take it and look at it like he was reading it, and then he would fire it over to first base just to get the runner by a half a step. And he did that.
He had a great arm. Yeah.
He had a rifle for an arm, and forget about his glove. Casey Stengel said he never saw anybody play third base like Billy Cox. He was a human vacuum cleaner. He said anything that was hit to the left side of the infield, Billy Cox had it. And when he retired from baseball, the story you just told, when he was traded to the Indians and he refused to go to Cleveland, and he even talked to Al Lopez, the manager, about going there and everything, and then he decided no, he wasn't going to go. You might have thought, at least I would have anyway, maybe he had a great job offer.
Yeah.
Billy Cox became a bartender.
Really? Unbelievable.
He became a bartender. Yeah. That's what he did when he retired. A bartender. Huh. You believe that?
Bartender.
That's
I believe it. Yeah. And then, there was a youth baseball park on North 2nd Street in Newport, Pennsylvania, that's named after Billy. And hosts independent Little League games. So he was quite a ball player.
Yes, he was.
He wasn't a big hitter. His major league statistics were batting average was .262. He had 66 home runs and 351 RBIs. But he was a great fielder.
He was known for his defense. Very, very good fielder.
Yes, absolutely. He died young too. He was 58 when he died.
Yeah, shame.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Now Charlie Neal was really an all-around ball player. He could play second, he could play short, he could play third base, he played the outfield sometimes. He was really valuable to the Dodgers. And he was signed by Brooklyn as an amateur free agent in 1950 and and he was with the Dodgers when they won the 1959 World Series after the team moved to Los Angeles. He hit two home runs in Game 2 of that series at Chicago's Comiskey Park. And in 1959, probably his best season, Charlie Neal had 177 hits with 19 home runs and 17 stolen bases, and he led the league in sacrifice hits and triples. And he won the Gold Glove at second base and played in the All-Star game and earned a championship ring, hitting .370 in the sixth game of the World Series victory over the White Sox. And that particular game, on Game 5 of that series, which was October 6, 1959, the Dodgers played at the Coliseum. And the crowd was 92,706, which continues to be the largest crowd in the World Series history. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
92,000 fans.
That'll
And
never
after
be
the
broken.
night, never again. No. After the 61 season, I'm sorry, the Dodgers traded him to the New York Mets for outfielder Lee Walls and Tash. And Neal ended up playing for the Mets expansion team, that team that lost 120 games, the most by any team in a single season since the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
He was the inaugural New York Mets starting lineup on April 11th, 1962 at St. Louis, batting third, going 3 for 4, and getting the first RBI in the team's history.
Wow.
Charlie remained can you imagine? Charlie remained a New York Met until a trade on July 1st, 1963 to the Cincinnati Reds after he had just hit 156 for the rest of the season. Charlie was released by the Reds in the spring of '64. His career was over at age 33. Amazing.
He also
played,
died young, didn't he?
Yeah. He played 2 World Series, also batting 4 times for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the '56 series.
Yeah.
He started the second base in Game 3 in the 5-3 loss to the Whitey Ford and the Yankees, before another large crowd at Yankee Stadium of 73,977, which was the largest of that series and still one of the 10 biggest crowds in World Series history.
Wow.
And he died in Dallas of a heart failure at age 65 in 1996. Yeah.
That's young.
He was 65 years old, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a great utility player. He was really he was a great ball player.
Yeah, he could play, like you said. He came up as a shortstop, but he sure could play second base, and he could play
Third
second base with the best of them. Yeah. Right.
I think he even played outfield occasionally.
Perhaps on occasion.
Yeah.
Not much though. Charlie got me a little rankled when he was a Met. He was number 4 on his uniform.
Okay.
His uniform was number 4. When the Dodgers got Duke Snyder, Charlie refused to give up his shirt.
Really?
Snyder had to wear, right? And Snyder had to wear number 11 until Charlie was traded, and then the Mets gave Snyder his number 4. But can you imagine if you're Charlie Neal and Duke Snyder, and you played with Duke Snyder in 1956, 57, 58, and 59. You played with the guy for 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And you know what a great ball player he was.
Oh, he was.
Here he is coming back to New York, and you don't give up your number 4 to give to Duke Snyder?
Duke Snyder. That was not a good move.
That bothered me. That really bothered me.
That bothered me.
Snyder had to wear number 11. He looked silly with number 11. Snyder did.
Yeah.
But then when Charlie was traded by the Mets, Snyder got his number 4 back. Charlie Neal had a huge scar. If you look at any close picture of Charlie Neal, he had he had an Al Capone-like scar.
Yes, he did.
Whenever a writer asked him about that, he just said, "I had a rough childhood," and he left it at that. He never told the story on how he got that
never
scar.
told that story. But I remember that.
Never told that story.
I saw him many times.
Yeah. He had a large scar on his cheek. Another oddity about Charlie Neal was, of course, his name was Charles Neal.
Yeah.
And everybody called him Charlie. When he would sign autographs on a baseball or in a yearbook, he would sometimes spell it Charlie and sometimes Charley.
Ley. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. He signed it both ways. And remember, the first fellow that we talked about tonight, Dolph Camilli, his name was Dolph. But because of Hitler, when Dolph Camilli signed some of his autographs, he signed it DOLF.
DOLF.
During the war.
Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
instead of PH like Dolph, because he didn't want to. He didn't want to be like Adolf Hitler,
Adolf,
who was
yeah.
PH, right? Adolf.
Yeah.
So he put an F on there. You can see you can see proof of that if you look up Dolph Camilli's. If you Google Dolph Camilli's autograph, you'll see that he spelled it with the PH, and then during the war, right around there, he spelled it with an F. So
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
Very interesting
stuff.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, we did well.
Well, this was fun.
Okay.
This was fun.
Yeah. It always is. It always
It
is.
always is.
And I thank you for your contributions to the
My
show.
pleasure.
And next week we'll see what we can do. Maybe we'll add. Next week we're going to try to add a little at the end of the show. We're going to add some LA Dodger stuff because the season will be coming up shortly. Spring training will be starting, and we'll see what we can do on that front. And until then, I bid you a fond adieu, and thank you again for your contribution, and have a good night.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.